Rev up your engines!
Well, now Ford is worried about Trump and tariffs on cars and car parts. And if you didn't know, for example, all of the Ford turbo diesel power stroke engines, 6.7s, are produced in Chihuahua in Mexico. Maybe that's why they're having problems with them. They're actually building the engines, the heart of the vehicle, in Mexico instead of the United States. And why did they do it? Because it's cheaper to build them there. Obviously, right? So, if they have to import the engines, even though many of the trucks are assembled in Kentucky, the engines are coming from Mexico. It's kind of funny. It used to be the other way around. Well, we'll put them together in Mexico. They can bolt those things together, but we don't want them building the engines and transmissions. Well, guess what? They're building them in Mexico now. Another reason not to buy a Ford diesel engine. I wouldn't buy a diesel engine made in Mexico. Their quality control's garbage in that country, right? And of course, Ford's whining about it. Here was what one guy said about him, one of these economists. Ford is in a horrible position. They have no choice but to continue to build the engines because there's nowhere else to go. Yeah, there's nowhere else to go because the swines decided to build the engines down in Mexico instead of giving jobs to Americans here in the United States. Well, they got nowhere to go. That's the only place. Hey, they're the ones who put it down there. Now, if you ask me, I doubt if there's going to be any tariffs on any of that crap. Because the last time I saw it, it was going to be a deal that the parts, at least 75% of the parts, have to come from the United States or Canada or Mexico. This was the latest deal they were conjuring up. They're going to water this crap down, that it's not going to mean anything. Do you really think these rich corporations are going to let the politicians say you can't have their factories in Mexico after they put billions in there? Don't think they're not greasing the wheels now, and it already looks like these deals aren't going to be diddly squat. I knew they weren't going to say, we're going to put a 25% tariff on the Ford engines made in Mexico, but they're putting them together in Kentucky. They've already watered it down that, well, if the parts come from the United States, Canada, or Mexico, 75% of them, they won't tariff them, right? This has become a joke. Like most things these days, they rattle the cage shakes a little, but the cage is still exactly where it was in the first place. The people outside the cage are still outside the cage. The people inside the cage are still inside the cage. I saw the mechanic came up with saying, and I have to agree, he says, built in Michigan, but not made to stay. He's talking about Ford F-150s. Now, when his customers brought in a 2021 Ford F-150 that only had 20,000 miles and it was all rusting out underneath. Now you'd think, okay, they build them in Michigan. There's a lot of salt on the roads. You'd think they'd put anti-corrosion so they don't do that. The Toyotas don't do that. My 07 Matrix isn't rusted. When my mother sold her 07 Corolla that lived in Buffalo, New York, it didn't really have corrosion. It hadn't rusted through. They just do a better job. Ford doesn't with anti-corrosion. Ford has always made rust buckets. And you would think, building these trucks in Michigan, they would figure out how to do it. Toyota figured it out a long time ago, right? Now, the Southern mechanic warned you, and of course it is true. If you do live up north, you want to rinse that car off a lot because the salt gets in there. And yeah, Ford does some kind of undercoating on the cars, but it isn't that great. It isn't like the Toyota one. So you still want to rinse that salt off a lot because you get a crack. Some of the undercoating cracks, rock hits, falls off. You'll start rusting in that part. Once it starts rusting, it rusts from the inside out, right? If it's too cold, go to one of those heated car washes. Have them rinse it out. The most important thing is to have those rinses under the car to get rid of all the salt in the wheel wells, on all the suspension, and then it won't rot away. It's just kind of ironic that Ford's always had rusting problems, yet those trucks are made in Michigan. Hey, at least you can't blame the ones that are made in Mexico. You can say, well, they're made in Mexico. They don't worry about rust there unless they drive to the beach all the time because it doesn't snow much in Mexico. Well, if you ever tried to sell a car after you had a few years and you were really peed off at the small amount of money you got for it, hey, here's a car that loses 73% of its value after just 5 years. Hey, can you guess what it is? Well, if you're smart, or even if you're lucky and have common sense, and you said Jaguar, yes, you hit the nail on the head. The Jaguar I-Pace loses 72.2% of its value after 5 years. Now, what do you expect from Jag? I mean, our cars always lost value, but that's really wild. Now, way back in the day, I had customers that knew that, but they still wanted a Jaguar. I tried to talk them out of it. I had one customer, she ran a trucking firm, so she had an awful lot of money, but she wasn't stupid and she didn't like wasting her money. So she said, I always wanted a Jaguar. So she said, I'm going to buy a used one, right? So she bought a used one that was 5 years old. And it came pretty close to that. She only paid like 35% of the original list price. She kept it for 3 years, and of course it kept breaking, and she had to fix things over and over. And she kept having to fix the coolant reservoir, because even though we bought the coolant reservoir at the Jaguar dealer, original equipment, it would break every year and a half because it was made out of crappy English plastic that cracked and broke, right? And then when she got rid of it, hey, she only lost like $5,000 in the resale value since she bought it at only 35%, right, of the original list price. And she said, oh, Scotty, you were right, but I got the Jaguar out of my system. And she bought a Lexus instead. So no surprise that Jaguars lose an awful lot of money if you buy them new and then try to sell them 5 years later. Well, here's bad news. Consumer confidence in the United States about where the economy is headed hits a 12-year low. And this is the fourth monthly drop. Consumer confidence level is now 65.2%. Percentages, who knows what any of that means. But what that really means is economists consider that anything below 80 is considered a signal for a recession coming. Now it is 65.2. So, sure, the economists aren't right all the time, but they look at it historically and say if the confidence is below 80, there's a recession. Well, it's 65.2. You know what I have to say? I think the recession's already here, and they're just trying to cover it up. Here in Clarksville, Tennessee, they were building houses like mad. Now they got a bunch of them they can't sell. They have cleared a bunch of forests, but I noticed the forests that were cleared are still cleared forests. They've been sitting there. They didn't even start building on them. So it wouldn't surprise me that the recession has already started, and nobody wants to admit it because it looks bad, but it sure isn't looking good for the economy the way that it's headed now. Well, Tesla is being outpaced by the Chinese EV giant BYD, who have more sales than Tesla worldwide, reported a $107 billion revenue for 2024. So now they've gone past Tesla. If you ask me, they're just getting going. BYD's got batteries now that they don't have the problems of starting on fire like Tesla's. They're cheaper to make. They charge up faster. I think the Chinese have a pretty good idea what they're doing. And all of their cars aren't super expensive electric cars. They got a lot of cheaper ones. BYD just announced that it has battery technology. You can charge your EV almost as quickly as it can to take up gasoline car fill. We're talking 5 minutes. If it works, and they hold up over time. Still listen to old Scotty. Don't buy this crap until it's been out at least 5-6 years. Because they might say, now look, you can charge it up fast. Then you find after 4 years the batteries all go dead and it costs a lot of money, right? So don't overstretch the boundaries with this. But BYD's now past Tesla, and if you ask me, they'll probably keep going because they have a whole range of cars. They got super expensive cars, they got cheaper cars, and that's what the car business is about. Now, back in my day, the biggest sellers for all car manufacturers were always the lowest price ones. People don't have that much money. They wanted to spend less on a car. They weren't all super expensive. If the Chinese have a whole range and it works out, guess what? They'll take over. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. In 2024, BYD became the first company in the world to sell over 10 million new energy vehicles. That's a lot, right? So, watch out, Tesla. The Chinese have climbed on top of you. Something is rotten in Washington, D.C. because the Pentagon just picked Boeing to build the next generation F-47 fighter jets in a $50 billion deal. After all the problem their jets had, after their Starliner space thing was a piece of crap and abandoned the people in outer space for 9 months, now they got a $50 billion deal with the Pentagon. Yes, can we say there's corruption going on here? And it's even worse. Boeing is benefiting from, of course, what they call a cost-plus agreement, where the government covers Boeing's development costs, and Boeing's recent fixed-price deal, which have generated billions in losses, is gone. They're giving them a guaranteed cost. They're saying that we're guaranteeing you a profit no matter what. If it costs more, we will pay more. This is disgusting. You know, there's some dirty deals going on in the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. After everything Boeing screwed up, they still got the contract. How many vacations have come on out of this one, right? Or how much money are in Swiss bank accounts? Who knows, right? But it's ridiculous. After Boeing did all those screw-ups, they get this giant contract as cost plus, guaranteed to make money. Boeing's recent deals were fixed price, and that generated billions of dollars in losses for the defense. Well, they got to recoup their losses, so they're back to cost plus. Oh, yeah, people say they're going to save us money and they're going to cut the fat. This is total horse manure. This is right back to the same old nonsense that it was in the first place. Only in this case, it's worse, because Boeing has proven to be a crappy company, and yet now they got it even better. When they were crappy, at least, it was fixed deal. Now it's cost plus, and they're worse than they were, but they get a $50 billion deal, which, of course, may end up being more, because if it costs more, they can charge more. This is absurdity in action. Don't follow the malarkey that comes out of people's mouths, especially politicians and businessmen. Follow the money. In this case, it's our money going to Boeing, down the drain. And if they say they need more, we got to give them even more to flush down the drain. Now, here's why I'm here to help you people out. It's an email from Mr. Peabody. Thanks to you, I've become able to help myself. I also helped our assistant principal out. She has a 2015 Honda Odyssey with 145,000 miles and the code of PO420. She went to the Honda dealer. They wanted $2,500 to fix it. Using what you shared with us and my Blue Driver, I tracked it down to a weak battery and a bad coil. It cost $250 in parts. I was able to help my boss and avoid a $2,500 mistake at the Honda dealer. I'm pretty sure I've earned a great deal of free time in my job. Oh, hail Scotty. Okay, you don't have to hail me. I'm here to help people out, right? And this is why I do what I'm doing. He used my information and use that Blue Driver. It's a Canadian company, like $100. It's a dongle. You use it with your cell phone, and you can analyze the car. And the guy figured it out. So, hey, that's why I'm here, to help everybody out. Hey, there's a bunch of crooks out there, people. $2,500 the Honda dealer wanted. He fixed it for $250. And there's lots of deals like that out there. A little knowledge and a little scan tool that costs $100 can go a long way. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.